former Quebec judge, today, and this has been such a bizarre case, pled guilty to manslaughter in connection with the 2009 death of his wife after first having, well, I'll let Kelly Greig fill in the blanks. Kelly Greig, CTV Montreal reporter on the story today. Kelly, thanks for being here.
No problem.
So we go all the way back to the original trial here, and let's pick up the timeline from there to how we got to today.
Yeah, so this initial trial was historic. It was the first time in Canadian history a judge was charged with first-degree murder. Now, this is in relation to the death of his wife, Nicole Rainville. Now, his wife had suffered a stroke. She had paralysis on one side of her body, and she ended up dying from a bullet wound in the head. So in that initial trial, there was a lot of back and forth by both sides about if she was physically capable of shooting herself and committing suicide. That was the big question. Is that possible? Now, initially, Judge DeLille was convicted of shooting and killing his wife. And that trial went ahead. He served time. He served 8 years and 310 days to be exact. We'll round it up to 9, say. But what was interesting is that after that initial trial, he tried to appeal, and this ended up on the desk of the former Justice Minister, David Lametti, who said there were serious errors in the first trial and that there should be a new trial. So that happens. Mr. DeLille walks free at that time. And that leads us up to today, where there was this ongoing legal battle over, well, when will this second trial go ahead? It was actually supposed to be heard by the Supreme Court of Canada today to see if that second trial would go ahead. In the meantime, Mr. DeLille pleads guilty to manslaughter. Now, we didn't know what the charge was going to be today because there has been quite a bit of back and forth between the Crown and the defense over what the charges should be.
Now, as I understand, and thank you for laying out the timeline, that's perfect. Now, what I'm trying to figure out today, I thought I heard a clip from the Crown suggesting they don't understand why this is happening at all because there has been no new evidence, according to them, that has come to light between the conviction then and today's decision to plead guilty for manslaughter.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting aspects of this case, and you hit on one of them. So this, still to this day, there's no agreement between the Crown and the defense of what actually happened. Normally, when you have someone who is about to plead guilty to something, you have what's called in court a statement of fact. So they will say, here's what happened, and I agree to these charges. I plead guilty to X, Y, and Z. We don't have that today. The Crown still thinks and would still argue, and they did this morning, saying if he would to go to another trial for first-degree murder, we think that should go ahead. The defense says, absolutely not. This should be a case of assisting someone commit suicide. So this manslaughter charge is almost like a compromise because the Crown wants a further charge, but if he'll plead guilty to manslaughter, they can now have a charge of manslaughter on his case. The defense says he should not be serving any time at all because he's not guilty of first-degree murder. He might be guilty, we don't know, of assisting someone to suicide, but if he agrees to pleading guilty to manslaughter, well, the time that he has served, plus this 1 day in the sentence, that will be all that will be done, and now his case is closed as of tomorrow.
So it's over with that additional 1 day, because as you said, he served almost 9 years in jail already, and he walks as a free man after tomorrow.
Exactly. So he walked into court this morning, shuffled into court. Now, keep in mind, he's now 88 years old, and that's another reason the Crown was saying, we will accept these manslaughter charges because if this were to go to another trial, we don't know how long that would take and how long the trial would take, how long it'd even take to get to trial. So they were very consistent and very clear that they did want to have some sort of charge laid out today and laid on his case. Because if there was another trial of first-degree murder, it might take years. Who knows what could happen before then.
I remember as well, if we go all the way back to when this story was in the news virtually every day, the idea, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Kel, he had originally said, you mentioned his wife had a stroke, and the question was she able to take her own life? Could she have killed herself? That he had put a gun down next to her on a chair and left the house. And then when he came back, she was dead. Is that correct?
So this is another really interesting point of what happened today. Now, we do need to be careful because, as I mentioned, the Crown and the defense, there is no agreed-upon statement of fact. So this is what the defense is claiming happened. So the defense says today, and this was a bombshell revelation in court, the defense got up, the lawyer got up and said, Well, Mr. DeLille initially lied to police, and at the first trial, there was lies. And then through the trial, he had said that he had loaded the gun days before and she'd gotten a hold of it and taken her own life. Today, the defense claims Greig, the wife, asked him to load the gun, .22 caliber gun, and leave it next to her, fully knowing that she was extremely depressed, that she was suicidal. She did not enjoy the quality of her life. She had talked about suicide, and that he had tried to persuade her out of it. Yet, the defense says today, well, that date when the shooting happened, he had loaded the gun, placed it next to her, then left. So, again, the Crown does not agree with that. The Crown thinks that he pulled the trigger. The defense says he did not, but there's this admission today that there was an initial lie. The defense said, it was a moral mistake. It was a mistake because it also hindered his case, and that it was a cock and bull story that he invented for police.
Mm-hmm. And therefore, now that this is over, you can't go back and say, we've now found out that this person lied at the time of the trial. We want to reopen the investigation. That would
require a whole new
right.
trial, which is what would have been agreed upon today with the Supreme Court. And we'll never know because that's now been withdrawn from the Supreme Court because of this guilty verdict in the manslaughter case. I know it is confusing, but it is very interesting. And, essentially, as you said, tomorrow he will be a free man.
Yeah. Just one last thing. When we go back to the judicial review, so when David Lametti was justice minister and had ordered that, and obviously, as you just described, we know now that he admits he lied back then. What was the rationale for doing this then? What did the justice minister say was the issue with the case, with the verdict the first time around?
So there was a lot of ballistic reports and about exactly the angle of the bullet going into Madame Greig's head. And I know it sounds gruesome, but this is what is discussed in court. And if she was physically able to kill herself because of the angle of the bullet, because of her physical capabilities, that kind of thing. And one of the things that was discussed today is that a lot of the evidence in that first trial is now no longer with us. It was destroyed. For instance, today we learned that Madame Greig's brain was not kept, so they can't go back and look at it again in light of new evidence and retry it. They have to rely on these reports that initially Lametti had said maybe there was an error with them. So that kind of muddies the water a little bit in terms of a new trial, and that was going to be one of the things that the Supreme Court would have to weigh out. Not anymore. So that was kind of one of the aspects. There were a few other things involving the evidence that doesn't exist anymore, essentially.
What a story. Again, worth pointing out, so he walks a free man tomorrow. He's how much? 88 years old?
He's 88. He'll be 89 in May.
Wow. Kelly, thank you so much. Really appreciate it today.
Take care.
CTV reporter Kelly Greig on Jacques Delisle, former Quebec judge, who walks out of prison tomorrow, out of jail as a free man. 2009 when this happened. Quite a story.